Now there's several steps in order to complete this job, and obviously the first one is taking off the tire. Now when you get the last nut off, you want to move the tire off and put it in a safe location where it will be out of your way. My car personally has a bad rotor on it. My brake pads aren't too bad. I'll show you ones from the other side in a minute. But here's some basic things of your car. This is what we call strut. This is your spring. This is all part of your front suspension. This is a sway bar in the front here. This is your tie rod linkage, and this is our stabilizer bar here. This is your transaxle in here that I'm pointing at now. This goes actually right to your transmission. Now, as far as the brake, we have pretty much is your hub assembly, which is all inside here, which we won't have to touch on this car, thank God. The rotor, the brake caliper bracket, and then the brake caliper itself. Off the brake caliper comes a hose, which is actually the brake line. This is the brake line that most people isn't too bad to replace because it goes right here, and you can buy it at any auto store if it's bad. Now this is the old rotor off the other side of the car that was already previously done. As you can see, it's been shot, it's a little rusted and all. Most of this rust will actually occur over time anyway. No matter how new or brand new the piece looks when you put it on, it'll end up looking like this. What really counts is width. Now these, I believe, are warped because I have a slight shake in the car when I'm braking. Now, as I said before, nice, shiny and new. This is probably the cleanest you'll ever see this again. After that, it'll look like that after a month. Now, this is what we call caliper pins / bolts. This is what has to come off first before we do anything. Now, like I said, I'm doing a rotor and a brake pad change on this car. Brake pads are good, but when you're doing a rotor job, it's always best to might as well change the pads as well at the same time. It saves, for trouble later on. This here is the next part I need to remove. This is the part of the bracket. This holds the bracket here in place in its floating position above the rotor. These bolts are usually quite harder than the caliper pins themselves. When taking these bolts off for the bracket, you want to be careful not to drop the bracket afterward. After they come out, this thing will just slide right off. Now once again, after removing the bracket, you should be able just to slide the rotor off and put it to the side out of the way. Now the new one will slide right back into place where that one was located. Now after you place the new rotor in place as so, you replace the bracket for the caliper exactly as you took it off, right into place. Now I'm then going to put the new brake pads into place into the bracket holder. But as you can see here, the caliper isn't going to fit back onto a place where it was. It's because the new rotor and the new brakes are just a little bit thicker than the old ones that were on there, as I showed you. Now they say the main reason you do something like what I'm about to do is because they're worried about pressure building up in the lines that are down there next to the caliper themselves. If the pressure builds up, you'll have to replace those as well. The easiest way to go about on cheating on that is actually to remove the brake fluid cap. Now what you want to do is you want to make sure it's cleaned off. Now I know I have a sway bar that is in the way and probably is making it a little bit difficult to see it, but it's just simply twist off, make sure it's not connected there. Me, I'm going to use a simple C-clamp. Some of the brake calipers you can do that. Now in larger vehicles like trucks, you probably will want to invest about $10 or so it is for the tool just to press that back really easy. Everything's in place, everything's tightened. You don't need to use a bigger bar or a breaker bar to tighten these up anymore. If you do, you can probably end up over tightening them. Now, after you get the car down, you want to give the tire one last tighten up on all 4 lugs. Like I said, you just want to snug them up. You don't want to have any squealing. Now, after that's completed, we'll put the tire cap back on. We'll close the hood and do the best part of any job, which is take it for a test drive. That's about it. Everything's good.